Hello and welcome to the In My Defense podcast. Welcome to the very first episode. In fact, thank you so much for being here. My name is Christian. I am your host. This is a show where we give you a healthy dose of info dumping about all kinds of subjects, everything from movies, film, TV, sports, basically any subject that you can imagine. We're probably going to do an episode about it eventually. And for this episode, for this very first one, I have a very special guest, one of my very good friends, Allison. Allison is here to talk about voting, and I think there is nothing more important to talk about in these times. Now, if you're listening to this episode when it originally comes out, you know that we are in the midst of primary elections all across the country. So I don't think that there is a better time to talk about the importance of voting, especially by someone who is as passionate and knowledgeable about voting as Allison. When you guys get into this, I hope that you see exactly how important voting is by the end of it, why you should go out there and vote, why you should try to encourage other people to vote, and if you're able to, help other people get their votes out there as well. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you will see why voting is so important and why you should go out there and vote too. Maybe not necessarily go out there with the times that we're living in right now, but if you are able to vote by mail, absentee, do whatever you can to get your vote and make sure that your voice is heard and encourage other people to do the same. Now, I don't want to waste too much of your time. Allison is legitimately one of the smartest people I know, so if anybody can convince you as to why voting is so important, it's going to be her. Let's get right into it. So, I am here with Allison McCoy, one of my very good friends, and we are here to talk about voting.
Yay, voting!
Yay, the process. Say hi to everybody for me, Allison.
Hey guys!
Now, just for fun, I looked up what the definition of vote means. And there's quite a few. It's to give or register a vote, to cause someone to gain or lose a particular post or honor by means of a vote. And, it's used to express a wish to follow a particular course of action. For anybody that may not be familiar with what voting is, if not, I feel sorry for you. Or shame on you. One of those two. If you don't know what a vote is.
I would say shame on you, because if you live in an English speaking country, you should know what voting is. I think most places Britain conquered have some form of voting at this point, right?
At the very least, is to decide who in the tribe has to clean up the trash after.
Yeah, there's always something.
So why are we talking about this? Why out of I'm giving everybody I bring on here free reign to talk about whatever they want. Why'd you choose voting over everything else?
I chose voting because, we're in an election year right now, a bigger election year, because, we have the midterms and then we have the presidentials, and this is the presidential. So everything is on the ballot. And then also, this is just one of the easiest ways, I think, to affect your community, especially in terms of local stuff. I have heard time and time again that people don't trust Washington, and why should I vote for these people? They don't care about me, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, well, you still need to vote, because there's stuff like city commission and school board and sheriff, judges. These are things that affect your community right now. And so if you're not participating, you're pretty much just letting other people make all your decisions. So that's why I really like it, because it's really important for democracy and stuff.
and so are you out there whenever you can? Because I know here in America in particular, they don't make voting the easiest thing in the world.
No, they don't. It depends actually though on what state you live in. So we live in Florida, which means that, you have to register to vote. You do not automatically get registered. And you have to fill out something and then have it be turned back into you and have all the information correct, whatever. But there are actually states that you're automatically registered to vote just if you're eligible. Because when you go to register, the state has to double check all of that information. which means they have access to it.
Right.
And if they have access to the fact that I am indeed a resident of this state, a citizen of the US, tax-paying, yada, 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 yeah, I should just be automatically registered. I shouldn't have to go through 8 extra hoops
so like
vote.
when there are those people who see voting as a way to just provide even more information for the government on you, it's basically a myth at this point.
It's a complete myth, because they already have that information. The only information you might be giving them here, I have a voter registration form in front of me because I'm a nerd and I go places with them sometimes. The only thing I think that they wouldn't already have from you is maybe your email, and that's an optional box you can fill out. Your party affiliation, that is also public record. So that would be something they would find out from you. Or if you need assistance voting or are interested in becoming a poll member. That's the only new information from this form that they would find out from you.
Yeah, exactly. So you're already up for jury duty if it means it, like, registering to vote doesn't like make you a candidate for becoming part of a jury if you get summoned. One of the things that I learned a few years ago that was actually really convincing about how important voting is that it's not really about winning or losing when it comes to voting. It's just about making sure that your voice is considered in future elections.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I have worked with different organizations doing get out the vote campaigning, where we went door to door knocking and being like, hey, are you make sure you turn in your ballot, yada, yada, yada. And some of the people that you end up targeting are people that have voted in the past, but not consistently, because that's a really hard, I don't know. It gets really weird when a lot of people just don't vote in every election. And then they complain when things don't go right.
Yeah, I know me personally, it took me a while to realize how important it might be. When I was a kid, I grew up on George Carlin, and I lived through the 2000 election, and here in Florida, which was already a clusterfuck on its own. And then you have people that I looked up to saying things like, hey, if I don't vote, then I have a right to complain. You don't have a right to complain if you actually do vote. Which I think is the devil's advocate portion of it, where people
wait.
All right, so there's an old bit by George Carlin.
Okay.
That he did. It was I think it was either before or just after the 2000 election, and this was him late 90s, early 2000s, where he was really starting to get into that groove of being more pessimistic than anything.
Uh-huh.
And so the idea was people would say to him, oh well, yeah, if you don't vote, then you have no right to complain. You don't show up on voting day, you have no right to complain about who gets elected. And then it's why? I didn't vote. I didn't even leave the house that day. And so I have no responsibility for the person who you voted in and end up complaining about. You voted for the guy. You don't have a right to complain about the guy that ends up in office.
Oh, I see. So he's just a jackass.
And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around. I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent people and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on election day, I'm in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with.
Yeah, it does not. It's one of those. I love George Carlin, but it's one of those things that doesn't hold up so well, especially 20 years later.
No, it didn't hold up the day he said it. To be honest, here, the problem I have with that is, if you look at elections, the reason a lot of really unpopular candidates have won is because more people stayed at home than went out to vote. If you look at even in the state of Florida, Trump won by less votes than there were people registered to vote that just didn't, like registered as Democrats that just decided not to show up that day. Like that's literally why people have won elections, is just apathy.
Yeah. And even that, like that, and that was in Florida, but then across the country, Trump did lose the popular vote. But
Yeah.
because of the way the Electoral College works, if the people who make the official votes for the Electoral College see it going a certain way and is too close to tell, it basically becomes a 50-50 chance about who ends up getting elected.
Yeah, the Electoral College is very, very frustrating. It's a really outdated form of voting. It has some racist history to it that we don't need to like fully get into because I didn't do enough homework myself before this. But yeah, it's a really big problem. And it's part of the reason that when I've gone out and done voter registration drives and stuff like that, it's one of the big reasons people don't feel like they should vote or why their vote matters. Because they're like, who fucking cares? Like Hillary got more votes, but you know, she didn't win. Which is where I just had to be like, okay, like I get it. It fucking sucks. We can't change that right now, but you can at least vote for the person you hate the least, and or again, fuck Washington, vote for your local stuff. And if you don't like partisan politics, there's still people you can vote for that are nonpartisan.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And then when it comes to the way the system works, as troublesome as it is, if more people had shown up to vote, like Trump lost the popular vote, and less than a quarter of the population of the country even showed up to vote that day anyways.
Exactly.
But so if it was a lot more clearer as to what the people wanted by voting, then the Electoral College would have had to let Hillary into office. It would have had to swing her way, because it would have been much more clear that that was the way the country was thinking. And even if she did lose, and even because she lost, that doesn't mean that any of the votes that went in don't matter, because politicians are looking at those numbers, they're looking at who shows up to vote, and they're already planning for the next election. They're already trying to see, okay, these are the people who actually show up to the ballots.
Yeah.
So these are the people that we have to consider when we're trying to pass policies, get policies through, and these are the people that we have to care about.
Yeah, there is a reason that there is so much advertising done to senior citizens every election cycle, and it's because they are consistent voters. So politicians are more likely to pander, like, we're not going to cut your Social Security, fixed income nonsense, blah, 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 because these are individuals that are actually going to vote. I know I've heard a lot of people get really frustrated, like, oh, politicians like don't come into these areas to like do whatever. And on the one hand, yes, you're completely right. If someone represents you, they should care about what you have to say, because that's their entire job. However, I can also understand from a strategy point of view why those same teams might not feel the need to spend their resources coming to a community that typically doesn't vote at all. Like,
yeah, I think we're in a place where it would be lovely if politicians use their positions to really take care of as many people as possible.
Yes. Unfortunately, right now, they don't all do that.
Yeah, right now you'll see like a good handful of them will be they're just trying to keep their jobs. Yes. Being a politician pays a lot of money, it comes with a lot of benefits, and you're pretty much set for life. So you want to keep that job as long as you can. So you want to make sure you adhere to the people who are actually going to support you in keeping that position.
Yes, exactly. So like that type of politician, I do not like. I try not to support if I can help it, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to be pragmatic about it. I will be voting for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Was he my first pick? No.
Was he your second pick by any chance?
No. But I'm being pragmatic about it and being like, okay, well, Gotta pick somebody, because if I choose to not go into the polls that day and vote, and a bunch of other people vote for Trump, then like I literally just let that happen again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things I'm really trying to get across, at least like the thing that really made voting seem really important to me, was that yes, we have to be pragmatic about this upcoming election, but then it's not just about this particular election. It's about the next one. It's about the next one, because now if a bunch of people who didn't vote before come through and vote this time, people are going to look at those numbers. Okay, all right, we have a lot more young people voting. We have a lot more people of color voting. These are the people that we have to listen to the next time the next election comes around, because if we don't, we're not going to have a job in 2-4 years.
Exactly. Especially because like, there are a lot more young people getting involved in stuff, especially Gen Z, bless their heart. They have just had it rough. And they're coming to the realization that, they have to fix it. Otherwise, nothing's going to get done. And I think it's going to be really interesting because, a lot of these kids that, 2 or even 4 years ago weren't eligible to vote now are. And that could really sway the demographics. At least from what I've been seeing, just casually talking and interacting with the world. I have not done any surveys myself. Don't want to be accidentally spreading false information. This is anecdotal evidence.
Even that has to mean something, right? Because I don't think when I was that age, voting was ever a thing that ever seemed that important or seemed cool. Like I remember the Rock the Vote campaign, but it always felt kind of like false to a certain degree, having a bunch of like celebrities show up and make music videos talking about how cool voting is. It's like, hello fellow kids and all that kind of stuff. Now it's like now you see young people show up and it's like, no, the world is on fire.
Yeah, like literally parts of the world are on fire.
We can't leave this to the old people anymore. We can't wait. It's not going to be a matter of time for we can't just wait for the old people to die out and for people to start listening to us in 20-30 years. No, like we have to make sure that our voice is heard now so that change actually starts happening.
Yeah, no, it's totally right. It's great. And one of the things we're really doing, the big push this year, especially with the coronavirus going on, which by the way, what I'm going to talk about is important all the time, but voting from home is a really big one that we're trying to do right now to push, because that way, even if some shit happens, you can still vote. Because if you look more recently in some of the primary elections in different states, voting locations have been closed down. There have been really long lines. Some people were in line and then weren't allowed to vote, which I don't think is legal. Whenever I've gone to vote in the past, there's always been like, if the time goes up, a voting official just goes to the end of the line and then just no one can go behind them.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if it's like the polls close at 6 and at like 6:02 they go over, like no one else can come because like you were supposed to. That's also a different problem with how we vote in America. I'm sorry. I want to talk about like 15 things right now. I just got like
this is perfect.
I just got like a mind whatever. Let me write them down. Okay.
We're only a third of the way in. Let's do this, girl.
No, I know, but I'm organizing my thoughts real quick so that I can get this done and like voting.
And it's another one of those things that shows you like how important this voting process actually is, because as much as some sides of the aisle might be talking about voter fraud and how a lot of people
it's non-existent.
Yeah, it's a non-existent issue. The biggest problem we're facing right now is that not enough people are voting. Not that some people are voting more than once.
Well, it's because the people, like, I'm sorry, Republicans that are in power right now, a lot of the reasons they're in power is because a lot of people do not vote. if you look at most like national surveys for things, like most people are in favor of common sense gun control. Yet it doesn't end up getting passed because those same people that are in favor for it don't vote. And so then the candidates that get elected aren't necessarily the ones that you would agree with. It's crazy how that works. Anyways, so in terms of like the celebrity voting thing that we were just talking about, I completely agree with you. I never have liked the celebrity I could give two fucks about the world, like 3.5 like years, and then like for 6 months you're all like, woohoo, you better vote, you better vote, you better vote, and then it goes right back to not giving a fuck anymore. Like I find that very disingenuous.
Because ultimately we know that these problems aren't really affecting them, whether it's the racial issues of today, the coronavirus stuff. This is not something that really affects anybody who lives in a different world than everybody else does.
Exactly. I mean, that can even just be shown by like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his hot tub going, why are you kids going to Florida? Just stay home. And it's like, well, dude, not everyone has like their own private hot tub that they can go in like that. Like some people have to go to the beach because that's the only way they can swim. I'm not trying to defend anyone for being stupid and going out during a quarantine, but I am going to say your little video was out of touch, Arnie. It didn't work.
And I remember like seeing like Diddy show up and doing the Rock the Vote and it never felt true to me.
No, however, I do think that more currently like celebrities are being forced to be woke. Not so much that they want to, but that like enough of Gen Z is like, the world is on fire, you have to care about this. That a lot more of them are at least now being like, hey, I recognize my privilege and the fact that this isn't actually affecting me the same way it is others. Therefore, I think we should do something that can help everybody, not just me. Now, if you frame it like that, I'm more likely to listen to you because you sound like you actually thought about it for 5 seconds.
And not that you took a paycheck from some company to sell voting for a little while.
Yeah. And honestly though, I think the biggest thing to getting people to vote is seeing other people in your community vote. Knowing other people that vote. I know I went voting with my parents all the time when I was a kid. Just because, you know, you can't leave a 2-year-old at home. You're not supposed to. So I'd get brought. And so then when I turned 18, I knew exactly where I was supposed to go vote because I lived in the same house my whole life. And I knew to do it. I was very comfortable doing it. And it was just like part of how I was raised. And that's what I've heard from a lot of other people as well. When I'll go out and do register the vote campaigns, people be like, I vote every year and I vote with my mom every year. And like my whole family votes and we're really into it. Thank you so much. Like blah, blah, blah. And the people that don't vote tend to just live in families where they didn't vote as much. Yeah, I don't really know how we would fix that, but that's something that I've noticed.
I've thought about the idea of what can really attract people to voting more often when they can. Is like you have to. Is it making it a party? Is it like someone out there doing somebody a favor and just ordering a bunch of pizzas for people waiting in line, and like the local radio station showing up and playing music, and like while everybody's waiting in line, it's almost kind of like make it an air of atmosphere. Because I remember like the times that I've gone to vote, because I've either had to show up super early to avoid missing hours at work, or just like taking a day off entirely, and then it's just waiting in line until it's your turn.
Well, that's part of the problem. Like there are other countries, like in Australia, their election days are big party days. They all go to the poll and then they all barbecue and drink at home, and it's great. And they all put on their red, white, and blue Australian gear and they get trashed. But in America, unfortunately, we have our elections during business hours on a Tuesday, which completely disenfranchises a lot of voters, because if you work an hourly job, you may or may not be able to either take the hours off or miss work so that you can vote. Like, you might be more worried about rent or food on the table or whatever else it is. Not only that, but there's transportation issues for some people. Florida is very fortunate because we also double as God's waiting room. So you can register to vote from home very easily. But not all states allow you to do that, which means if you have transportation issues or mobility issues yourself that maybe came up last minute before you could register to vote from home, you're then unable to vote, because if you can't get there, you're just, shit out of luck.
Yeah.
And those are things that we need to change as a society. I know I've heard a lot of people advocate for, like, taking away Columbus Day and then making voting a national holiday. So
just taking everybody and like making that an active effort just to get as many people to register as possible.
Well, not even just to register, like on election day, like that's, first or second Tuesday of November when we all vote. If that was like a national holiday.
Okay, so we're just like trading one for the other.
Yeah, so you trade one for the other, but this one would actually be like important and worthwhile.
And not celebrating a terrible person.
Yeah, and not celebrating like a terrible, rapey, murdery, evil guy. But, again, these are things that you have to vote for people to change the rules.
Yeah. Not only voting for those rules to change, but also voting for people who will actively work on changing those rules. Because here's the thing, though. A lot of people who are in office right now are people who realize that if more people voted, they would lose a job.
Yes, that's very true. Which is why I also think that people really need to get involved on the local level if they're really annoyed with what's going on, because that's how we get those senators and congressmen and presidential candidates. Is they generally started doing something local first. Like, maybe they didn't like go like, mayor, city commission, like maybe they didn't go through all the steps, but they were probably involved at some point on like the county or state level. And so if you can get involved in that stuff, you can actually make your voice heard. I've gone to a number of meetings and made elected officials very uncomfortable at my pointed questions. But if you go, they then know that it's important to you. And elected officials are the same as any other human being. They don't like being called out in public. They don't like not having an answer to something. So if you go to a meeting and you have a question and they don't have an answer, you bet your bottom that they're going to figure it out by the next one, because they don't want to be put in that spot again. They don't like it.
Exactly. Yeah, embarrassment is the greatest way to change somebody's minds.
That's why protests work. I've spoken with people that have protested in Washington before, and depending on what it is, sometimes senators and congresspeople, they'll send their aides out to like sometimes tell the protesters like, hey, Representative so-and-so is not for this bill. Like, we just need to let you know that like we're not for this.
We're cool, okay? We're cool. We're with you. Like, I can't say it at work because my boss will get angry, but we're with you.
Well, no, it's like their boss is sending them out to say it. They just aren't going to do it themselves because that's like.
Yeah, so that's what the politicians trying to say, because they have to pretend they're with all their cronies and their friends.
Not even necessarily that, but just like, hey, don't smear our name with it, like leave us out of this one.
But a lot of the time it becomes to a question of sympathy. I think a lot of people in office are like preying on a lack of sympathy that some people might have, because there's an idea that's growing now is that we can't just take care of ourselves. I think previous generations were taught and believed that you have to look out for number one. You have to look out for you and yours, and can't really care about what's happening across the street because it doesn't affect you. When in reality, what we're finding now, especially with the pandemic that is sweeping the nation, that we're only as good as the people who have it the worse off.
Yeah. My background is actually in public health. So I have been just hitting my head against the wall this entire time because that is a lot of policy that comes out of public health is you have to make sure that the least among you can still be healthy because viruses don't care. I was explaining this to my dad one day because he lives in Michigan and he was complaining that the governor shut down stuff. And I was like, Dad, viruses don't care about your economy. They don't have brains. They can't. They just want to reproduce and infect as many people as they can.
Yeah, you know what will ultimately be worse for the economy is sick and dead people.
Yeah. Having 3% of your population die. Whenever people go, oh, it's only 3%. I want to tell them like, okay, so the next time you go to the store, just pick out the people you want to die.
Yeah, I put it on Twitter the other day. It's like if 1 to 3% is an acceptable number to lose, give me a pair of shears and I will cut off 1 to 3% of your body part. I'll pick a random part of your body and I'll cut off 1 to 3%, and we'll figure out how you handle that.
Yeah, no, it's just ridiculous. And the thing I find very ridiculous from the entire thing is some states now wanting to restrict vote by mail. Which, I mean, come on. Like, we're literally in a pandemic.
And they use the excuse of voter fraud, and we know that isn't a thing. There have maybe been like a dozen cases in 30 years. I don't have the exact...
One of the most recent was a lady that voted for Trump twice, and she got charged. Like, literally, from the last election. Because she lived in she had a home state address and then she had a college address. And like, she voted like a month separately, like, you know, because at one point she filled out like a vote from home and then maybe went to the polls at a different time and like just slipped her mind. You know, it happens. But then she got investigated and it wasn't even like, it's not a big deal. The funniest thing I find about a lot of the people that are really hesitant about vote from home is that there's a number of states out west that have only done vote from home for a number of years. Colorado being one of them.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I actually worked in Colorado for a few months one year during an election cycle. So I'm very, very well versed in what they have. So Colorado does this really cool thing where they actually send every household a blue book about a month before the election. And this is a book. It has all of the candidates, I think names. I don't know if it has all of their stuff, but then it also has every single ballot initiative written out, what it means. It's basically a cheat sheet for you so that you can figure out what all the things that are going to be on your ballot, you know, so you can do some homework. And then I think it's 3 or 4 weeks before the election, they start mailing out those ballots. I can't remember what day it is.
I think it's similar. It's similar here because I've been registered to vote for a mail for a while now.
Yeah. But yeah, in a lot of these Western states where people live so far apart, it makes no sense to make mandatory in-person voting. And so Colorado is one of the big ones that they've only ever had vote by mail for at least like 10 or 15 years. I don't know their entire state's history. But if they're able to do that for multiple years in a row, I think the country can probably figure it out.
And of course, nobody's talking about that because Colorado is a lot of rural voters there that might end up voting a particular way that the people who are talking about voter fraud would prefer. It's the places where there's a lot of there's high population, high people congregating in cities that they're talking about voter fraud because people who tend to live in mixed populations tend to vote maybe in a direction that doesn't coincide with what Republican or conservative views might go towards.
Yeah, you just put Republicans are okay with white farmers voting from home and not okay with black city folk voting from home. Very politically.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
But I have a question about the Blue Book in Colorado. Did you, from your experience, did you find that people would actually use it, like actually make an effort to sit down and study the book and go through the information to make an informed decision at the ballots?
So I don't know, when I was there, my friends did, but my friends were also a bunch of political science nerds. Um, so they're not really a good sample. But I do think even if people don't necessarily sit down that month ahead of time and look through their Blue Book, that Blue Book does still remind you to vote. Like, there is this theory of 6 touches where sometimes if someone is hesitant or unwilling to do something, if at 6 different points someone or something reminds them to do that thing, or expresses how important it is, etc., they're more likely to do it. So it is possible that, maybe sending that Blue Book out and then sending the ballot to your house, and then probably having someone else contact you, remember to turn in your ballot. Like, those little reminders are things that will help you to remember to actually do those things, and ingrain the importance of voting into your life.
Mm-hmm. If it's there, even if it increases the amount of people going out to vote by 1%, it's still a benefit.
Yeah, it still benefits, because like we were just talking about with the virus, 1% is pretty big.
Yeah.
And if that's a 1% increase every election, you could eventually get everyone voted.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up was because it interested me, because I got the email with my sample ballot.
Mm-hmm.
It was my sample ballot for the primaries coming up in Florida, and really it's just the ballot itself. It's just basically a list of names, and I know that if I want to make an informed decision when I vote, is I have to look that up personally.
Yes.
Which in today is not difficult. There's plenty of sites online that are that translate the legalese of several policies that are up for vote, and then you can look up any name on the ballot and see what this person's policies are. Look up multiple sources, and you can do that all from home without ever having to put too much work into it. But it is an active effort that some people have to do. I think a lot of people who vote are even the kind of people who will be like, I don't know any of these names. I'm just gonna I'll just pick the one on my side, or the one that sounds like a nice enough person or whatever.
That's exactly what I did the first time I voted. When I was 18. It was 2008. I knew who I was voting for president and for governor and for a few other things. But you get down ballot, and then especially a lot of those nonpartisan things, regent of a university, or county trustee and judge for whatever district court. And it's just all these names you don't know. And I remember just being like, well, I'm going to vote for the girl. If there's a girl option, I'll vote for the girl. And then, the least white sounding name is the one I would vote for, because, yep.
I would be lying if I have not done the same thing.
Yeah. And that's what I did the first time I voted. That's what I did. And since then, I figured out how to vote by mail, and it's the best. One of the reasons I really like voting by mail, not only the fact that you don't have to put on pants, but but also, so say you didn't do any homework before the election, and you get your vote by mail ballot in, you now have it in front of your face, and you can open up your laptop and literally Google each person to figure out whether or not you want to vote for them. I've done that before. Again, especially when it comes down to the local stuff where it's, city commission, sheriff, this, that, judge. And I don't know who anyone is or what anyone's background is. And so I'll Google everyone. And for stuff like judge, I'll look at what type of law did you practice before? Was it corporate? Was it public defender? Was it housing? Was it what was it? And then that can help inform what type of a judge I might want. You know what I mean? Whereas if you just go in person, you're just sometimes guessing. However, you are allowed to bring a list if you want to.
Yeah.
If you wanted to print out that sample ballot, fill it in, and then bring it with you to the poll, and then transcribe it onto your actual ballot, that is allowed.
Yeah, which is what I did for the last midterm election. Because I think they had sent, I think I got emailed and mailed both a sample ballot, and so I ended up bringing that with me when I went to the midterm elections last time. And they're important, even like the midterms, even if you don't find yourself caring too much about the big time elections because you don't think it'll make big enough of an impact. But like in the last midterm that we had here in Florida, it allowed folks that were convicted of a crime to vote.
Yes.
Which is a big thing.
Yes, that was Amendment 4, which is an amazing amendment that got passed. It's actually really embarrassing that it had to be passed. And for anyone that isn't unaware, the law in Florida used to be that if you had ever been convicted of a felony, you could no longer vote. The only way you would be able to vote is if you went and applied for clemency. And the only way that you could do that was by going through this really big, long, arduous process. And then you would have to literally go to Tallahassee and speak to Rick Scott in person. And then he was able to tell you whether or not you could vote. And it was like a complete, he just got to decide. Like, you weren't allowed to fight it after that. He would just be like, oh, you really look like you're changing your life around, but I don't think you're ready to vote yet. And then that would be it.
Yeah, it's nonsense when it comes to people making decisions like that. And like, for anybody who doesn't know what Rick Scott looks like Lord Voldemort. He is not a person that you ever want to meet face to face. He
looks like if he threw up milk, the FCC would have to like X that out because it'd be pornographic. He looks like a dick.
And even when it comes to like, you know, people might talk about like, I think for the longest time people thought losing the privilege to vote is a justifiable punishment for committing a felony. But
absolutely not.
But then you have to look into the numbers about like who exactly is getting convicted, because like not only is the like the Rick Scott thing about him just deciding if you seem like an okay person whether you get to vote or not. Judges are the same way. Judges in court make decisions all the time based on whether or not like it's before or after lunchtime. If you catch a judge at the wrong time of day, he might be a little bit more hard on you than he might be otherwise, just because he skipped breakfast or something like that. Like
because he's a person.
Yeah, because like, when you leave it up to those little personal things, it gets kind of ridiculous that it can end up changing someone's life and not allowing them to have the same kind of impact that their next door neighbor does.
Yeah, especially because it was a time intensive thing. So like, you know, again, if you're the type of person that has an hourly job or family commitments, you don't have the time to do that. It costs a lot of money. So again, if you don't have the money to do it, you couldn't. And then you had to travel. And not everyone has transportation. The other thing before the way Florida had it was it ended up affecting more low-income Black and brown men. Because guess who's more likely to be arrested? So those just became like compounding factors in the disenfranchisement of certain communities. I've done register to vote stuff before Amendment 4 got passed, and I had to tell so many people that they could not vote. Like, they would come over to me and be like, oh, let me get registered. And then like the second question would be like, I affirm I am not a felon, or that my right to vote has been restored. And they would and like a number of times they'd be like, oh, well, you know, I got out of jail like 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. And then I would be like, did you get clemency? 9 times out of 10, they didn't know what that meant, which meant that they hadn't. Because not only did they not do it, no one had really even explained to them how, or that they couldn't vote.
Hey folks, sorry to interrupt. Just want to clear something up real quick. Sorry about the background noise. This was kind of done last minute and it's raining outside, so not much I can do right at the moment. But a few days after we recorded this episode, the Supreme Court made a decision that certain restrictions were still allowed in Florida regarding the voting rights of ex-felons, causing a lot of people who could have voted in this next election to have to jump through a bunch of bullshit hoops to actually get that right. It sucks. A lot of people who had thousands of people, in fact, who had a chance at voting this year will not get to because of this decision, and it's bullshit. We didn't know it was going to happen at the time that we recorded this episode. I did get a reaction from Allison about it, so you guys can hear from her in just a second, and then it'll pick up right where we left off with the episode that we recorded. Be careful though, it is a bit not safe for work.
Motherfucker. God damn it. Fuck. The goddamn Supreme Court made it so that now felons who have not paid all their fines and fees cannot actually vote in Florida's primary election. What the fucking fuck? That's not what we voted for in 2018. Amendment 4 didn't have anything to do with that. That was a law passed later by Republicans who were mad. Ugh. I mean, Jesus Christ. Why can't we just have nice things? I was finally getting proud of us. I was like, oh boy, yeah, we're in the middle of a global pandemic that we're not addressing at all. In fact, we're trying to reopen schools, but you know what? At least people can vote finally. Maybe we'll make some changes, but nope. We've made sure none of that shit's gonna happen. God damn it. Florida, we look terrible. We still have Jim Crow laws. What the actual fuck? God damn it. You know what? I'll sacrifice myself. We can just cut Florida off and then we can just sail it away and we just won't be part of the U.S. anymore because we've lost that privilege. Because this is stupid.
And part of that has to do because voting for the longest time was seen as a burden. So, like, it's not a big deal if I can't vote anymore because it doesn't matter. But now it matters more than ever. So, like, all in all, the more people that are voting, the better things will be for everybody.
Well, yeah, because then we're actually finding out what people want. Like, It's helpful to figure out what people are or are not okay with.
If anybody wants a frame of reference to that, like, think about how many American Idol winners you remember and how many people in second place you don't remember. America's been pretty good at picking out really good singers. We pick out singers really well. When it comes to like sussing out all the bad singers, we're actually pretty good at that. We can do the same thing with politicians if we wanted to.
Literally, if we wanted to, we could do that.
More people are voting for America's Got Talent than presidents.
Yes. Well, part of that's also there's not a bunch of hurdles to vote for America's Got Talent. You just need to have a phone. Whereas to vote in America for president, you have to fill out 20 forms and be approved. But the other really cool thing that's going on in Florida right now with voting is, so after the Amendment 4 got passed, which meant that if you had previously been convicted of a felony and you had finished all sentences and probationary periods, you could now register to vote. So after that happened, Florida Republicans made a new rule that if you hadn't paid off all of your fines and fees for, court, probation, prison, whatever have you, then you couldn't vote. Like, so, you can have finished your sentences, you can have repaid your debt to society, but you need to pay your debt to me too. The funny thing being is that in the state of Florida, if I am ordered to pay you money because something happened, like, I stole from you, whatever, I go to jail, but then I'm also ordered to repay you, that would be a direct me paying you. And so the problem with that law that they tried to have is that if they wanted to enforce it, that would have been a lot of labor on their part because they would have to individually go through all of these cases and call people and be like, did you get paid? Because Florida Florida doesn't have you pay the court and then the court pay them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Luckily, just this past May, a judge struck that down as unconstitutional under the 24th Amendment, which is, I believe, the amendment against poll taxing. And this is because a lot of these like fines and fees are so much money that your average ex-felon who, when you're an ex-felon, you're not getting the best job for the most part. It was just an unreasonable amount of money for them to be able to pay, to the point where it would leave a lot of people just unable to vote for probably the rest of their life, if we're being completely honest about it. And so they got rid of that, which is wonderful, which now means that in the state of Florida, if you have been convicted of a felony, but you have served your sentence and any probationary period, you can now register to vote. There is no issues. And even though it has been struck down as unconstitutional, Republicans were still very successful in scaring a lot of people away from even registering.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of techniques for it.
Because people don't want to get in trouble. People don't want to accidentally get into trouble because they hear all this stuff like, if voter fraud, you go to jail, this, that, or whatever. But filling out an application is never fraud. It's an application for a reason. They can say no.
Yeah, at this point, like, if I come away from this knowing anything, is like voting is an act of rebellion, as funny as it is. There's a lot of people in power out there who do not want to hear your voice. They do not want to know, they do not want to cater to you in any degree whatsoever. Like, the best thing you can do if you're like, fuck the system, is to vote and change the system. Like, the call is coming from inside the house, guys. We can do this. We can actually like change things and really piss off some old white men.
Not only that, but if you can get your candidate in, you can then bug them for the rest of their term. You can just be up their ass every day. You can call them. You can mail them. Ooh, fun fact. If you send someone like physical mail, they have to have a person open that.
Yes, I've read this.
Yep. A person has to open that. And or if you're ever looking at one of those petitions that you can sign online where they're like, optional, fill in your own comment, write some nonsense sentence. It doesn't matter, because if you have something that's different, your representative's algorithm can't just scan that out and be like, that's another one of those petitions I'm getting sent. They actually have to have somebody click on it and read through. So
yes, put them to work. Make them work for you. Make it so that being a politician is a pain in the ass, so that only the people who really want to do it can actually do it.
Well, not even that. It's just that entire thing of politicians are people too. People don't like constantly being told that they're not doing their job well. People don't like to constantly have to deal with like all of this stuff. And so if there's something that like everyone seems to be really mad about, in general, they'll switch up their opinion because they're done being yelled at. There is a level of like them just wanting you to leave them alone. If there was nothing more accurate in the Shawshank Redemption, it was the fact that he had that letter writing campaign that worked.
If we can change the monstrosity that was the Sonic the Hedgehog design and get it changed to a more palatable design, we can change your politicians' minds, folks. If we can get Hollywood to listen to us, we can get anything done. I promise you. All right.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's just a matter of persistence. It's very easy to get frustrated, especially if you get really involved for like one election cycle and like your person doesn't win, and then you're all like boo-boo face because I did all this work, it doesn't matter, this and that, rawr. I understand, but the fact that you did all of that work means that there are that many more people out in your community that just realize that's even an option. Because what can happen sometimes is there's a lot of areas where people from, either party will run unopposed, which then means that anyone in that community that like maybe doesn't agree with them might not even feel like they should, like, why should I vote? It doesn't matter. We're going to get the same dude in office no matter what. Who gives a shit? But if there's enough people voting out there, then candidates in the future will know, hey, maybe I would have a chance.
Yeah,
maybe I should run. Maybe it wouldn't be a waste of time.
Yeah, and the more people we get doing it, the more people we get making this active effort, the more it actually spreads that work and makes it easier for everybody overall. So like, yeah, you had to bust your ass for this particular election, but then you inspired 9 other people to get involved also, and now everyone's doing a tenth of the work that you had to do on your own.
Exactly.
And that just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading until we're actually making an impact on what we want to happen.
Yeah. And that's really important too, like getting out there and doing stuff. It's so much harder right now. I do a lot of voter registration stuff. I've got like a few dozen forms just here in my room. And it's really difficult because normally, especially on an election year right now, we would be going out to like, public events, fairs, concerts, what have you, and like just registering anyone you could see. But right now, that's a lot harder. But that's also an opportunity for people that maybe normally wouldn't have been up for going out in public and talking with people in person. You can still do stuff to get out the vote. Currently, I am doing a postcard drive with the Miami-Dade Democrats, the county party, is doing this thing where I'm going to show you, but like people listening won't be able to see it. So I'm just going to describe it. It is a postcard that just says you can vote from home, and then it has the phone number of the Board of Elections. It's ours, the website, Vote From Home Miami. And so what we're doing is we're just mailing these out to people that are registered to vote, but not registered to vote from home, and just trying to get people to vote from home. You can also do that from making phone calls, sending emails, just talking to your friends. There are so many ways to like help that isn't putting on a t-shirt and running around the neighborhood like with a big smile plastered on your face going, "Hi, vote!" Because like I'm okay with doing that, but not everyone is.
Awesome. I think this has been great, Allison. You are an awesome guest. I really feel like this is going to be one of those things that people definitely have to listen to. Is there any final things that you want to get off your chest real quick? And when you're done, just tell us where people can find out more about you, if they want to follow you on social media, or if there's anything that you want to share.
Yeah. The one thing I really want to make sure that everyone understands is that, yes, voting from home right now this year with, COVID-19 running
just
amok.
Gestures at the world.
Running amok. Yes, it's very important. But even on a normal year, it's really important to get registered to vote, especially by mail. I don't have it in front of me right now, but the likelihood that you will vote increases by like 2. So if you're just registered to vote, let's say you're about 30% likely to actually go vote in this election. But if you're registered to vote by mail, you're like 60% likely to vote in the election because it literally comes to your house. So that's a really big thing, especially for smaller elections. I know there was a city commission election, like, when was it? This past November, and I had a single person on my ballot, like just one person that I needed to vote for. Personally, I would not have left the house for that. But because it came to my door, I voted in that election. So that's something that you can also think about. Also, there's a number of different ways you can turn in that vote by mail ballot. So If it comes down to it's only a few days from the election and you don't trust the mail service to get it where you want it to go, you can take it and physically turn it in to your supervisor of elections office. There are different ways to turn it in that aren't just throwing it in the mail. And that's a thing too, because not everyone trusts the mail for whatever reason. So if you're really worried about it, you can take it in person. Ooh, or if you decide I'm going to get a vote from home ballot, but I still want to go to the polls that day, what you can do is you can take your ballot, just don't open it, and just hand it to the poll person. If you go vote in person, they'll take it, they'll throw it away, and they'll give you one so that you can vote there and get your little sticker.
Okay. All right, awesome. That's some advice from one Mrs. Allison McCoy. Allison, if people want to hear directly from you, if they want to hear your voice, or if you have a social media that you want people to follow, is there one out there for you?
Yeah, just my Facebook, and it's my name, Allison McCoy.
So thank you so much, Allison. This has been fantastic. I have learned so much. I hope the people listening to this have learned a lot too. You are the best. Thank you very much.
Woohoo!
And that's the episode. Thanks again to Allison for being my guest. I hope it was clear how passionate she is about voting, especially after the Supreme Court makes some bullshit decisions. I hope it's clear how important voting is for all of us. This episode, in fact, is being published during the primaries in 2020 in several states, so I highly encourage you to vote, preferably by mail or absentee if you have the option. Show notes can be found at inmydefensepodcast.com. If you go to those notes, you'll find out the music in this episode was made by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.filmmusic.io. Go there if you want to check it out. Podcast art was made by Gizmo at Gizmo Creative Designs on Facebook if you want to check them out. Make sure you just click past his face, just exit out of his face so that you can actually get to the website proper for all your graphic design needs. If you want to support this show and see more like it, go to iTunes or your podcaster of choice, give it the highest rating, 5 stars, 10 out of 10, whatever that rating happens to be. That makes it a lot easier for other people to find this show. Share it. Thank you just for listening, though. Really appreciate it. I know, everybody's getting annoyed with these call to actions, but hey, I got to do it too just to make sure as many people can hear this show as possible. If you would like to send feedback, feel free to do so at inmydefensepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send comments, questions, concerns, suggestions for future epissodes. If you have something to say it to me directly. I really appreciate it. I'm Christian. I am your host. Feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at @AntiChrisRivero. And reach out to me for anything you want to hear about, folks. See you next week on the In My Defense podcast.